Welcome to AI in Learning, a series that unites today's most forward-thinking voices in learning and artificial intelligence. Together, we'll explore not just what's changing, but what it means for how people learn, grow, and stay relevant. Each conversation goes beyond the trends and buzzwords to understand real shifts that are happening in skills, tools, and mindsets that are shaping the future of learning at work.
Welcome to this video series on AI learning from Adobe. And today we have Cara North from the Learning Camel, and you have an extensive background in learning experience design, as well as AI as well. And you've worked with Adobe, you've worked with Amazon, you've worked in higher ed, and welcome aboard.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So I have a question for you. The first question is really about AI. If AI is doing all the heavy lifting in L&D, how does that elevate or how does that change storytelling?
Oh, that's a great question. I think with AI, as far as content production is, I think that it can create thousands of words quicker than my coffee maker can make me a cup of coffee. But what it lacks is that emotional gut punch, right? That contextual piece of it. I think it's important for the content to have the relatedness to that training population. Now, again, with AI, you can leverage that, but I like to think of it this way, almost like if AI is a partner for us, we are kind of the showrunner, so to speak. We're responsible for that arc, and then have AI help us fill in the scenes.
So how can AI really help you in storytelling? What are some of the things that it really does, maybe even better than what we do, the other way?
All right, I want to be a little bit provocative here, if that's okay. So Mike Taylor and Bianca Bellman have a wonderful book about leveraging marketing techniques for learning and development. And in this book, they talk about thinking like a marketer. So going outside of traditional learning and development and setting up your prompts around think like a marketer and maybe have a little bit of context around whatever the story is that you want to tell. There is a commercial that I saw in a presentation once, and they were talking about how pivotal it is through storytelling, and it was a commercial for Subaru. All right, and the entire commercial only had two words: they lived. And the entire video was these cars that were so smashed up and whatever. So instead of it being this long course or story of like, oh, Subaru has 5-star crash test safety ratings and all this stuff, there was just this emotional hook and power of seeing these cars kind of smashed up and thinking about, oh wow, people live through that. And I saw that, like I said, in a presentation years ago, and I still remember it. So leveraging AI to think like a marketer in the storytelling, in the visuals, right? Because sometimes we are not even really even thinking about telling that visual story in learning experiences, I think is really powerful.
I think that's really important. And I think, maybe it's part of your prompts in a way to say, put a good hook on the front of this.
Yeah, like think like a marketer. What would make this go viral or what would make this sticky with somebody? Those would be really good to put on the front of a prompt or in that iteration after you kind of get the first, second, third output. Like, okay, now think like a marketer. How can this be sticky? How can this stick with your end user from a marketing perspective?
So some of training is compliance based. Some of it is not compliance based, but it is performance that you need for sales training or customer support training. And sometimes people find it very dry and very boring, and they don't find it relevant to what they're doing in their job. Can storytelling and AI help with that?
Yeah, immensely. I think that it goes back to some of the stuff that we talked about around, again, anchoring that person in there. It should never be a guess of who the learner is in the story or what their role is. So even if you're telling a story about a coworker who is suffering with a problem or whatever that ends up being, you need to anchor them in there. Like, who are you in the story? What is your role in the learning experience? And whether it is you're putting them in it or they have a role, whether that is this person's going to come to you for advice. What do you say to them? Or, whatever that ends up being, I think you can use AI to piece that together and again, continue to iterate and build a more compelling learning experience.
Yeah, it makes it really empathetic, really. If you start out with the story and then you say, now I'm going to teach you how to make sure that doesn't happen or it does happen, wherever the case may be, right?
Actually, you made me think of something else that I like to do around storytelling. After multiple iterations, I like to ask it like, okay, can you make me an empathy map of what someone going through this story might be feeling or experiencing throughout? And then it goes through iterations with that as well. And that's really helpful around the story too, because sometimes you get attached to your own content a little bit and then AI has no attachment to your content. So it will tell you very quickly if this would potentially hit the mark or not.
So if you're working on prompts, what are the maybe top one, two, or three things that are non-negotiable that you really need to build into a prompt?
Yeah, great question. I think with me, in my own experience, I like to give it some information about the context of the industry, what it is that I'm wanting it to kind of create. So really kind of guiding what I want the output to be. Second point that I think is really important is giving a lot of options. I know that that was talked a little bit here at Adobe at the keynote this morning by Jeremy Utley. I was really excited that that came up today because I fully believe that to leverage AI, really using a lot of options is really, really important. And for the third point, I think it's important to use AI as a partner and ask it, what am I missing in this? Or what are some things that I didn't consider in this prompt? So that way, again, it's you're using it as a sounding board, as ideas. And I think that's a real benefit of using AI in storytelling. It can really see some things that maybe we don't see in our own lens and biases that we bring into our work sometimes.
So are the things that you can ask the prompt to say, act like this, or do this, or don't do that? Are there like, things that you always build into your prompts? Are there things that you regularly build into your prompts?
Oh, that's a good
And,
question.
and also, is there a framework or is there some sort of framework around that that people can use?
Oh, great question. I think one of the gold standards in any storytelling, learning, development prompt should always have something around Cathy Moore's action mapping, specifically focusing on, again, what is the content? What is it that you want people to do? And how is it mapped to outcomes? That's a really nice framework to put into a prompt. Just say, using Cathy Moore's action mapping, how can this story have that punch? Or how can you lay the land, so to speak, for that end user with it? So I think that that's a really good one.
That sounds fantastic. What about pressure testing your prompts or their results to make sure that they're accurate? I mean, obviously, a lot of people will use generative AI, they'll create something and they think they're done.
I think it's almost equating to the I'm not gonna say the word first draft, right? So give it an option to go through second, third time. A couple of my favorite prompts are, okay, be 100 times more specific. Or another refining prompt I ask is like, again, what is things that I've missed? Ask me 3 questions in order to kind of refine it a little bit more. So I never take the first response. I'm really not satisfied with it. A lot of times I iterate, gosh, maybe 5, 10, maybe even 20 times, but it's worth it.
I really like the ask three questions because it does a good job of that, doesn't it? It asks you things that you didn't even think to ask, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like it's watching out over your shoulder or something sometimes.
Yeah, that's really terrific. So when you're design, there's a lot of, obviously we have an enormous amount of diversity in the labor market right now, right? We have all these different generations that are working, everything from the young people that are, fresh out of high school and college, all the way up to people that are ready to retire. So, and all this diversity around the world. How do you how do you create a message, a story that resonates with everybody without creating this prompt that says, I need to regionalize it or something like that?
I think it goes back to some of the old tools of the instructional design trade, so to speak. Again, the relatedness of a job. I was very lucky in my formative education to learn about these things called job and task analysis. And even going back to that, again, how am I going to use this on the job? In Julie Dirkson's new book, she talks about transitioning from what's in it for me to what can I do with that. And I really like bringing that also in to the prompts after you give the prompt a little bit about the persona of the training population. All right, what can a widget maker do with this information? What can this person do with this information when it comes to a story and helping build that relatedness? It's never going to be perfect. I still think there needs to be elements of the human, the org in the output, but it gets you pretty far sometimes.
It's really asking the so what question that we should be asking in pretty much everything we do. Like, why should this matter?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's really terrific. So beyond the engagement scores that you find in learning and development, what are the other learner signals, that you should be looking for or measuring with storytelling?
Great question. I think it comes down to efficiency, safety, and just, again, making sure that people have what they need in order to perform on the job. I had a consulting project recently where I redesigned an onboarding program for an organization. The old onboarding program was about 4 weeks long, 40 hours each week, and very, I'll say, kind of dull, instructor led. Was able to reimagine that, leveraging powers of AI, leveraging storytelling, and kind of helping them through their journey as they are onboarding to this organization. We're able to cut it down to almost a week and a half instead of 4 weeks.
Wow. So that's a great measurement for leadership as well, to show that this is actually reducing cost and it's reducing time and time to value and everything else.
Well, and then also you think about the people resources of it as well. It was highly facilitated if you have the facilitator who maybe had to call off of work for the day or things like that. And also scheduling 4 solid weeks. That's really difficult when you're onboarding a job coming into a classroom every single day. And some of the feedback that they gave me about why this project was so important to them is they ended up losing a lot of people about 2 or 3 weeks in, because they were just sick of sitting in a classroom all day. They're like, hey, I want to get back, I want to get out there, I want to try it, I want to build the product that they were building. This was in manufacturing. So with the onboarding, even helping to build their retention numbers and keeping people in that first month was also another metric that was really awesome to track on that particular project.
So prompts, it seems like when I use, and I don't know if everybody feels this way, but it's come to the point where it seems like you can tell when something's been written by AI. It has those same dashes in it, the double dashes, and it has the same in summary kind of stuff at the end of it. What do you do to fix that?
I like to build some of my own custom GPTs. So one that I've experimented with that I think could also be used for storytelling. I'm very passionate about accessibility, and so I built a accessibility GPT that will rate my stories, my content for accessibility based on criteria that I've baked into it. Going back to your question a little bit earlier about the diversity and the different folks that we serve, I think that that's a really missing part of this conversation that really should be elevated. So experimenting with the building your own information with that. And the nice thing about it is I even asked ChatGPT to write me the instructions on how to build the custom GPT. So through iteration, I used it to build my own GPT.
That's really fantastic. There are a lot of people that want to write these narratives, um, and they want to write them in a powerful tone and everything, but they don't have the technical skills to do it. And I think some people are afraid of that. And I think what you just said was part of an answer to that question. Ask ask generative AI to help you figure that out, right?
Yeah, I would honestly say I think the best technical skill people can have today and in the future is curiosity and just the likeliness and willingness to try and experiment. I don't know why failure is such a bad word in our space. I think true learning experiences come through failure. We should, in our own work, make it kind of cool to fail in a way of like letting people experiment, letting people kind of go through these stories of like what happens when you mess up a widget or what happens when you don't turn something in on time or whatever that case may be around whatever it is that we're building our learning experience around. That's not a bad thing, and I think for us to truly be learning and development professionals, we need to take lessons of the things that we impart on others, and I think by being curious, trying things out, experimenting, that's the way that you get better at prompting. You can watch things on YouTube, you can watch things on, various learning platforms, but you can watch it all day long, but until you do it, you're not gonna get better at it.
It's a really interesting, and I think people that a lot of professionals are afraid of these things. I know. So my dad was a consummate student. He got a bachelor's. Well, he was valedictorian in his class, and then he gets a free scholarship to go and get a bachelor's degree, and then he gets a master's degree, then he gets a law degree, and then he gets a medical degree. He gets an MD degree, and he would not go near an ATM because he was afraid of looking bad in front of the, somebody in front of the ATM, my mom, it was very technical. And so it's interesting. I think people sometimes are afraid of that. I mean, the word engineer, I think is a misnomer. I mean, I've heard people call it, I don't know what you call it, but I've heard people call it prompt designing because that's really what it is. It's really not engineering. It's really designing.
Yeah, well, my motto is there's no such thing as a perfect person, and the most human thing about us is that we're not perfect, and there's just something to be said about the humility and lessons learned of trying something new and making blunders
And
through it.
failing at it, right? And that's what, yeah, I mean, because that's the only way you really do learn. Um, so if you're evaluating AI tools like, say, Adobe Captivate, beyond efficiency and those types of things, because there's table stakes in some of these platforms, right? But what do you look for in these types of products? Anything from Captivate or these types of, or, Learning Manager and things like that. What would you be looking for?
I think some of the things you need to look at when you're evaluating tools are, one, you need to kind of look at their metrics around system uptime and reliability. AI is so hot right now. A lot of conferences I've been to recently, it's like every vendor has AI bolted on, right? So I want something that's tried and true that I can say, yes, this product's been in the space for a while. Here's how, reliable it's been. Second, I really do care about the security of my clients, their information. I don't just want to put something out there of my own personal information or their information. So I'm really curious on how they safeguard information that's put in there. And then third, I want something that has a vibrant community. I think that some of the most successful platforms that I use personally has a great community that encourages people to be part of betas, try things out. Because I feel at the end of the day, they care about their customers. They want to build it for the customer, and the feedback that we give them hopefully helps them, and then we're able to test new things.
So if you're going to give advice to anybody watching this, what would you say is the one or two things that people should try or do in the next, say, 60, 90 days?
Oh, I'll go with a 30, 60, 90-day plan. How's that sound? So, in the next 30 days, I would love for people to think of a project, whether that's something you currently have, something that's coming up on your roadmap, and consider how you can leverage storytelling for that. Just again, identify that 'cause that can be a battle in itself. 60 days, think about how you can partner with AI. You don't have to have AI do every single thing, but there are things that AI can do as far as ideate goes, as far as building out different paths for you. There's things that it can do, but then make sure that you bring in the relatedness, the emotional hook. And if you can get those stories from your frontline people, all the better. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, how do new people mess this up? And from that, I get so many great stories. I get so many assessment ideas. So doing that work in conjunction with the way that AI is going to be building that out. And then in 90 days, launch it, test it, get you a little community of people together, go through it, see if they respond well to it. And if they don't, no problem, try it again.
Excellent. And so if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what do they do?
Sure. My website is caranorth.net, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Cara North.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.